Hello everyone, this is Boris here from EMnify. Thank you very much for joining in such a large number. And just before I start, if you can write in a question panel, can you hear me well? Just like hi or write anything down so I know that the connection is okay. And also, of course, if you can see the screen. We'll wait just a couple of more minutes to get your answers, and if somebody else is joining, then we can start. I can see some comments already coming, so I would suppose that the network is okay. You can hear me. You can see the presentation. So I would say that we could start. So once again, my name is Boris Morovich, and here in EMnify, I work as an international business development manager for a region of more than 20 countries. And the purpose of today's webinar is actually to give you introduction and overview of the most common IoT businesses and use cases, and all these problems that these customers are encountering and how we are helping them to solve these problems. So we announced that the webinar will address 6 topics. We make it a bit shorter, so it will, I would say, address 3 to 4 because we wanted to focus more into details on this and just to be able to, I would say, show you more into depth with each particular topic. So for today's agenda, we would do topics. Just a second, please. Okay. So the first we will go over vehicle tracking and fleet management. Then we will talk about vending machine management. And for the last topic, it will be smart meters in general and the building management. I will address each particular topic in the details. I won't mention now much about any of those. And for the end, we will have the Q&A session where you can ask me any questions. So please be free to write down the questions and we can address them at the end of the presentation. So telematics fleet management. So some of you maybe know what it is, some of you don't, but I'll be able to explain to you because this is, I would say, a broad theme, a broad topic. And when we talk about telematics, fleet management, we are actually talking about the companies that provide devices such as GPS devices, monitoring of fuel consumption, of location of the vehicles, of whether driver is speeding or he's not behaving by regulations of the road that he's being onto. In the past, it's very, I would say, famous that not famous, maybe not the best word, but it's why actually this industry is growing and why technology is being invested so much, because there was always some kind of trying to fake the system, whether with the fuel, whether with the driving behavior. And then of course we have insurance companies that in case if the driver was unfortunately involved in a vehicle accident, then of course insurance company tries to find a way to actually avoid not to pay the insurance to those companies. So unfortunately there is always that battle that comes after that is very costly and long term. And the companies, of course, want to find a way how to avoid having those battles, how to ensure their business, ensure actually their people at the first place, and help them have a better input in what their employees are doing in their working time. So if they are speeding, how they're behaving on the roads, which roads do they take, etc. So just by knowing this, you have many details that you want to get from your vehicles that is placed, for example, somewhere across Europe, somewhere in America, in any kind of the country, in any part of the country. And when I say country and any part of the country, it's important because some countries are smaller, some are bigger. And it's not same if you are, for example, based in Russia. We are all familiar with the geographic territory of Russia. And I would say when you are in the familiar area, then it's, I would say, a bit less problem. But when you move to remote areas, then it's a bit higher risk, higher problem that you're not familiar with the roads, not familiar with the surrounding. And of course, you want to be informed what's going on there. So we are talking here about the devices that are placed into the vehicles that monitor behavior of the vehicle from the perspective of driver behavior, from the perspective of the fuel consumption, from the perspective of location, and for example even road payments, because it's one of the very new things that we encounter. And that's when customers are coming and they are asking us, hey, but our vehicles actually have device inside and we want to pay for the roads. And we have a huge problem if we cannot pay roads, or if we cannot monitor how much kilometers or miles the vehicle has spent in a certain country. Because, for example, some of the countries in Europe have the restrictions if you are taking your vehicle in those and driving your vehicles that are transporting the loads. You need to pay certain amount of money based on how much kilometers you've driven in those roads. So some countries do it in the way of just selling you like licensing. Some companies are doing it in the way of they install the devices on the roads, and you need to place device in your vehicle. And when the vehicle is moving, it just sends a signal to, for example, open the gate or to monitor how much traffic is being spent, and based on that you will incur the cost. So there are many big providers out there that provide this kind of solution, but we also have companies that are actually just buying those devices and then rebranding it. But they all come to us and they ask us, well, we have some problems and we want to address these problems. So in this topic we will address five actually big concerns and big problems that companies in telematics, fleet management, road payments industry are experiencing. So the first problem is actually no service. And when I say no service, you can have a most advanced solution in your vehicle, a solution that will give you such, I would say, marvelous and great statistic. But if you do not get this information back to your cloud solution, back to your application or any place where you actually process this data, you're not able to make and to bring valuable decisions based on that. So to put it in a perspective, we had a customer, actually use case, who is renting the vehicle, so rent a car company. And the problem is when they are doing it in one country, it works perfectly. But when they move abroad, when the customer comes and wants to rent a vehicle and goes outside, they lose the connectivity. So they don't have a service. They don't have a visibility of where's their car. So you can put it in a perspective of how will they plan to rent this car further to somebody. Well, you might say, well, we're going to rent it based on what the customer wrote to us. But there can be always that unexpected delays. The customer doesn't return the car in time. There is road traffic, so they are being late, etc., etc. So if you do not know where is your car, where is your vehicle, whether in this case car rental, or if you are just renting the vehicles that and provision them to put inside the load and then transport this load, you will have serious problem, not just because of you don't know where it is, but it will cost you money because you cannot rent this vehicle, this space in this vehicle, or just a car to somebody else. So you are actually losing money. So there is a problem with no service. Now, when we talk about problem of no service, solution is of course cellular coverage, 2G, 3G, 4G, or LTE. So when we talk about it in general, some cellular providers like mobile network operators, and just to address this topic of mobile network operators, these are the companies that provide cellular coverage, voice coverage, for example, or to put it in better practice, these are like a big telecom providers Vodafone, T-Mobile, Tele2, Orange, etc., etc. So it depends on the territory or depends on the country where you use. But those are them. Now, in this, I would say, 21st century, we have a new terminology which is called mobile network virtual operator, MVNO, and these are network operators such as EMnify, which actually have their own core or their own core solution, which is the cloud platform or a platform. And they do roaming agreements with the network operators in order to provide a cellular coverage globally. We will address this more into details, but the idea of this slide is that you understand that in order for all these devices to work, we need to have a proper coverage and a proper solution that covers it. In this way, in this sense, it's a cellular coverage with all these technologies mentioned. There is very closely another topic related to this, and this is a redundant coverage, or when somebody says it redundant, doesn't mean unnecessary. It actually means a coverage that works parallelly with already first coverage. And I will explain it to you in upcoming slides. The second problem is the management problem. Management problem, how do you actually plan to manage all these devices? So put in the perspective of telematics solution, such as I mentioned, or a car rental company, which has thousands of devices deployed over tens or 20 countries, for example, in Europe, in America, in Middle East, doesn't really matter. So you need to have real-time input. Where are your vehicles? How much data do they generate? What is happening with those vehicles, with this data? Because without it, you're blind. You will, at the end of the day or at the end of the month, you will actually experience unoccurred costs. You will say, I do not know where does this cost come. And this is one of the major problems, and that's why I listed here as a problem number 2, because without a proper cellular coverage and a proper management platform, you can't do anything with your vehicles. And it's just like throwing the money into the wind. So the management platform today, as I mentioned, mobile network operators are their entire business model is coming from serving personal users. So everybody here, I believe, have at least one cell phone. So you probably got your contract from a mobile network operator who told you you will pay X amount of money per month in the course of 1 or 2 years, and this will be your tariff. You will have X amounts of gigabytes, etc. And this was their start. And also, of course, they provided the internet for home, television, etc. So this is their start. Today, they are switching also their business model. They are going into the IoT area, and they also want to provide IoT or business customers with IoT connectivity, with M2M connectivity. What I say M2M, M2M means machine-to-machine communication. So when one device communicates to another. Now, there are many different problems that occur here, such as the number of devices, because we all know that today number of devices already exceeds the number of the people in the world, but we won't go so much into deep details here. What is important to know is that these network operators are not designed with the primarily designed to be supporting IoT business. So they're using their current infrastructure, slowly, I would say, migrating, trying to improve it to support also IoT deployment. So many of these customers, many of these I would say industries that I mentioned, not just in the telematics, but also in the upcoming slides that I mentioned at the beginning, are coming to us and tell us, well, we do not have a proper way to manage our IoT devices. We do not have a proper way to store it, to do a storage of the data, and the proper way to do the analysis of all these devices. And if we want to have it, why? Because at the end of the month, we really want to have a clear input into what we do, how to scale it further, and based on that to bring the decisions. So EMnify came here, and EMnify is purposely built for IoT deployment. We didn't have before a service that will provide it to a personal user such as cell phone. So EMnify core, and when I say core, I mean our technology is a cloud platform, and we provide it to our customers in order to actually be fully in control of what they do. It's not really rarely that I hear when I speak with customers and they told me, hey, Boris, but we have a problem. We need to send emails to our provider now, and it takes sometimes a week to change something. And you can imagine being at the end of the month and customer cancel our agreement, and we need to cancel it with the provider, and we have a problem because account manager that is dedicated to us takes a week to reply, or we have to call him 10 times a day. He has other customers in the list, etc. So it's unexpected cost that occurs and could be solved pretty easily. So here we propose the solution, which is cloud platform, which gives you a real-time input in all of your IoT devices. You can do it at any moment, at any time by yourself. No need to send an emails, no need to call us. You can do it by yourself. There are many possibilities of a cloud platform. I wouldn't go into it deeply because we can discuss it further, or you can ask questions about that at the end. What is important to know that we also support integrations between your platform and our platform. So basically, we give you open hands to fully utilize the technology of today so you can deliver really high-class service to your customers. And when I say high class, I really mean high class in the way you can have a full transparency of what you are doing. And we believe that it's most important thing. But since we are talking about here about many devices, it's IoT devices. I mentioned that there are already more devices, IoT devices in general, than there is a people. There has to be some way of, or sometimes some problems occur. It can be with the device, it can be with connectivity, it can be something else, with maybe with the platform. So there has to be a way to troubleshoot the problems. And in our case, our prime, I would say, goal is to troubleshoot the connectivity issues. And that's the number 3 problem in this area. So what happens if you have your vehicle on the field? And I will give you right away the example of that. I had a customer, and I still have it, who is based in Croatia, and he travels in European Union. He travels also in Balkan countries, so outside of the European Union. And there are many countries that their geographical territory or relief is not really flat. So we have a problem with the signal. When I say we, I mean connectivity. There is a problem with the connectivity, with the problem with the signal. And the thing is that if you do not have the strength of the network, a strength of the signal, there might be a problem and you won't have a connection between your device and your end platform. And how actually to fix this problem? By fixing this problem, there are 2 ways. For the start, you need to have a redundant coverage. And that's why I skipped this to come to this end when I was mentioning type of networks at the beginning, like 2G, 3G, 4G. It's also very important to have redundant coverage like a multi-carrier provider, which enables you to choose by the strength of the signal to which carrier your SIM card or your connectivity will be connected to. So how it works? Let's say that the vehicle is placed in Croatia, or even better, let's say Germany. And in Germany, we have 3 network operators. So in some remote areas, let's say T-Mobile is not providing coverage, but there is another provider that does provide a coverage in that area. That could be, for example, Vodafone. So by the strength of the signal, SIM card will automatically connect to another network, or to, in this case, for example, Vodafone, and you will have a coverage also in that area. If you would just go with a local network operator, such as, for example, T-Mobile, you would, of course, be stuck with only one network, which means when the device is in remote area, there won't be coverage. And of course, from the perspective of technology and troubleshooting, the solution to find what is the issue with each of these devices is to have direct connection between the device, connectivity, and your platform. So for each of the devices, we provide a private static IP address and a private IP. So when I mean in this particular case, we have seen that many of the providers out there, even which is also our competition, says that we do not provide a private static IP address. We provide a dynamic IP address. So that's a huge problem if you want to troubleshoot the problem with one of your devices. It takes time, it takes resources, and I would say when it takes time and resource, it's time consuming and also not cost-effective solution. So EMnify will provide you with a static IP address so you can ping your device directly, and we will also provide you with VPN so that you have a connection between your service, your device, and connectivity in between. And if there is any problem with the device, with the connectivity, you can always troubleshoot it, and support can find a way to track what's happening with the device, and by that we know and we can find the core issue. The issue can be solved in many different ways. For example, doing the OTA, putting different preferential networks, even though we are not the provider that will steer your connectivity. When I say steer, I mean we do not choose the preferential network operators. That means if in one country there is, for example, 4 network operators, such as in Poland, the strength of the signal will determine to which network operator SIM card will connect, not EMnify. And at the end, we have a roaming costs and contracts. So one of the, I would say, first questions that I always get is, okay, but what's your price? How do we scale? Can you help us understand? We want to have a competitive offer. And this is something that is always, I would say, the core of the problem is when the customer wants to sell his solution to the end consumer. In this case, you have a company that's, for example, needing the transport of a milk, of a beverages, for example, and you sell your service of tracking and monitoring the devices. You want to be sure that the end customer is paying to you. If he's not paying to you, of course, you do not want to pay to anybody else because you do not have that money. So roaming costs and contracts in this way are main question after of course technical aspect. So roaming costs, we are all familiar in the European Union. There are no roaming costs. In some way they are, I would say, hidden. But if you go outside of the European Union, if you go, for example, in a Balkan area, in Russia, Belarus, any other country that's not a part of European Union, then a higher roaming costs occur. And that can be a problem. When you provide your solution to the end customer, you want to be sure that he doesn't have a problem, that you have a best way to manage it. And at the end of the day, the idea is to have a good solution that will help you earn more money. With the solution that EMnify provides, we give you a global coverage, or we tailor the coverage based to your needs. So if you need European Union plus countries outside of the European Union, there are different ways we can provide it. One is to see, okay, how many or what is the percentage of your traffic being generated in European Union and which outside. So there is always possibility to take European Union as a coverage, and then just on top of it, when it's being used outside, to pay when it's being used inside. The other option is to have one coverage for all the countries that you need. So you don't have to worry actually about anything. You put the SIM card inside and you are, I would say, sure that your customer has the best solution and best coverage. It all depends how we structure the partnership with our clients. The idea is that you are certain that the connectivity is there, that you are covered, and that your customer is, I would say, safe in that case. So the solution is, of course, a world coverage without long-term contracts. And when I say long-term contracts with the local operators, such as, for example, T-Mobile or Tele2 or any other, they transfer the business of private users to IoT world or IoT business, and they want to use contracts that are 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to bound you to be their customers. And the problem that we see here is that you cannot account same thing for the customer that comes to you. Some projects succeed, some projects fall down, device breaks, somebody tampers with the device, breaks something, etc. So what happens if you buy a service that lasts, for example, for 2 year, or the contract is a 2 year, and the device goes offline after 1 year, for example, due to some breakage or like electricity problems or battery life, etc. You still owe money to your network provider for that 1 year that is left, and that's a big, I would say, big money when you talk about scalability, when you talk about thousands of the devices out there. So we shifted this business model from yearly contracts to monthly contract. So you actually only pay when you use it. When you don't use it, you deactivate the service and you don't have any costs occurring to us. And we think that's the way how you put the ownership to the customer hands so he can scale your solution, because at the end of the day, if you scale your solution, we're going to scale our solution. And here we end with the first part, and we move to vending machine management. Now, in the vending machine management, there are some problems that you will see across all of these case studies that I present here, but it's better to repeat them a couple of times so you are aware that if you are in IoT business in general, one thing can be applied to another, because we are in general talking about IoT devices and IoT area. And by saying that, vending machine management is in some way similar to the tracking business, because it also have a similar problems, but in different scale and different way. So here we will address 4 problems, which are signaling problems, data consumption, coverage, and security. So when we talk about the first problem, low or no signal, for example, inside of the buildings, because this is the place where usually we place these devices. Of course, you can see them on the street, but majority of them is found out inside or of the big complexes. So first problem inside of this is that you need to pick what type of network you're going to use. So it can be, for example, LoRa, narrowband, Cat-M1, Sigfox, cellular coverage, etc. So it's different type of networks, different type of technology behind. And the idea is, what do you want to achieve at the end? It's very important to understand it, because here it's also a financial part which will be addressed in security section. So if we are talking about this problem, solution to this problem is a signal strength and cellular coverage. I have a customer that comes to me, and we were talking about his business where he has deployed hundreds of thousands of the devices, and the idea behind was how to be certain that his device, after they are deployed, are working constantly without any problems. And why the idea is in the core? Because SIM card, the connectivity, the module is being placed in the production, and it takes time as well as, of course, resources to go and change it. So it's practically impossible to change connectivity provider once you choose it. So you need to choose it really, really wisely. And when you choose provider, when you choose technology, you need to be certain that it works. So the signal strength is a cellular coverage because of the latency, because of the possibility that there are more networks out there. There is more coverage. It's more certain in a larger percentage that your device will be always on. And this is not a moving object. So once you place it, it stays there. Of course, if the building is being destroyed or something, you will move your device. But in 99% of the cases, once you place the device, it stays there. So the solution in this case is the cellular coverage. The second problem is a network operator or contract with only one network operator, and this is something I mentioned in the first part with telematics. So choosing one network operator when you have hundreds of thousands of devices that you want to deploy and you actually do not know where the end device will end. It can end up in Russia, it can end up in America, it can end up, for example, in Europe. But even if you know, imagine having hundreds of thousand devices assembled in your factory, and then think about it. Okay, where will I send this device? Okay, I have only 10,000 devices that will go to let's say Germany, but I have 5,000 that will go, for example, in Bulgaria or Russia. So how to do it from the logistical side? So contract with only one network operator is not a solution, and you need to think outside of the borders, not just in a way of money, not just in a way of the technology, but also in the way, how can I scale my business? How can I make it easier for me? Maybe paying a couple of cents more per device will help me in a way that I will save the money on my logistical part, on management part. So here we have a solution which is network agnostic SIM that connects to the most networks without no contract. And when I say about this, it's the same thing like with fleet management. You send your device to, for example, Poland. It will work there with 4 network operators. You place it in Warsaw, of course, you have a good coverage. But if you place it in some remote area, there might be working only by one network provider. So inside of our platform, you can actually choose if you want to blacklist the operators and say, okay, I know in this area the best network operator is this one, and I will put it and I will place it and I will use this network operator. And this is actually real case. This is real problem that we've been solving for the customers in this area. And it's a common problem because the customers are now being familiar with the technology, with the MVNOs and the advantage that we can give in this area. And it's very important to know that the contractual part of this business is again tied to 1 year, 2 years with the network operators, local ones, but with us it's monthly. So if your device is broken, and we see it as a very, very unfortunately common thing that somebody tries to break inside it, steals the merchandise, and your device, your vending machine is going down for a couple of months, you still have this expense going by with the local operators, which provides 2 years contract. And for example, they do not care about whether you're going to use the device or not, whether you're going to use the data or not. And from the commercial and also technical perspective, it's very important that you choose a good connectivity provider, which allows you to work with the strongest signal. So latency and slow data transfer. We are talking here about consumer coming to a vending machine wants to purchase the product, and latency in this case means if you need to wait for 10 seconds for your purchase to be finished, it's too long. It won't work. The data needs to be exchanged immediately, or at least in a couple of seconds, so that the customer gets his product, you get the money, and the transaction is being recorded somewhere in your platform in the service. So it's the most important part of financial transaction. Transfer has to be fast. Latency in the way of the data that's being transferred needs to be proper, needs to be in the same region, same zone. So the problem in its core needs to be addressed from the core of other solution. And in that way, EMnify Core is built in cloud. So it allows us to scale it globally. It allows us to have our data centers based on regional breakouts. And when I talk about regional breakout is a place where your data is being transferred or sent. So EMnify has 3 regional breakout centers, one in Europe, one in America, and one in Asia. So that means if your business is based in America, your data won't be redirected to Europe, but to America. If it's based in Europe, your data will be redirected to Dublin, where our data servers are. So that means the latency, the communication between the devices, the endpoint, when I say the endpoint, it's the device representation of the device, and your platform is as quick as possible. And this is very important. Cellular connectivity here is the only solution because it takes a couple of seconds compared to, for example, Sigfox or LoRaWAN, which takes up to 10 seconds. And this is something that we are solving for customers in this area. Security issues. Security issues is always one of the most important things because we are dealing here, for example, with the credit card thing. So of course you do not want to put a credit card in something that is not secure, so your data is being stolen, or somewhere along the line someone steals your data because you do not have a secure tunnel of communication. What we propose here are three options, or actually two in this case, more secure. EMnify provides VPN, and EMnify provides IPsec and a transit gateway. The third solution, which is a static IP address I mentioned before, is prerequisite to be able to troubleshoot problems, to have a direct connection, and also transit gateway. For example, if your solution is built in a cloud, in Amazon, we can allow direct connection between our cloud instance and your VPC. VPC is a virtual network dedicated to your account. So basically, the data is never leaving the Amazon. If you are somewhere outside of the Amazon, we can do it via IPsec. So the idea behind is to provide you security, to provide you reliability, and for it to be cost effective for you. And the last topic that we have for today, the last case study, is smart meters and building management. So smart meters in general, we know a lot about them. You heard, I'm sure, about them, and it's, I would say, hot topic. Whether they are placed in the field, in the buildings, in the municipalities, in the cities, smart meters are a huge portion of generally of IoT. Of course, from the IoT, we can also think about wearables such as smartwatches, bracelets, etc. But the problems that we see in the smart meter industry is the scaling of the devices, number of the devices. It's the small consumption rate, it's the remote areas, and security again. We'll go again through all these problems. Some things will repeat again, but as I said before, it's the common thing for IoT, and we try to address it properly. First is network coverage, usually limited to only one country. So in Poland, for example, and I mentioned Poland because I work in a Poland a lot, and Poland is very, I would say, hot market for IoT for our smart metering. And when we talk here about smart metering, we have a case of electric device that monitors, apologies, not electric device, of the device that is there to monitor electricity in the house. What is your consumption? Usually, these devices are connected to a local Wi-Fi or any other network. But what happens if there is no, for example, electricity? If there is a problem with the local network? Sometimes it happens, and it's important to know that these device needs to be online because some customers, and especially I think it's in today's industry when we have a blockchain and we have bitcoins, etc. When somebody wants to mine it, he uses a lot of electricity. So of course the electricity provider wants to know all the time how much electricity is being spent. He doesn't want to be scammed in that way. And if we deploy it in one country, of course, there is also a limited coverage in some area, which is one of the topics. So again, we address the same problem, a same issue, just a different industry. So the solution to this is global connectivity provider, not just limited to one supplier. Because if you are a device manufacturer, if you are IoT provider and build IoT devices for monitoring, for example, electricity consumption or field crops and water, you want to scale your device easily. You don't want to think about, hey, but what if I send it to Africa? Will it work there? What if I send it to Australia? Will it work there? I want to send my device and I want to be sure that my device works everywhere, so I don't have to worry about it. I want to focus on things that matter, and that's the data, that's the information, that's the leveling up of my products, scaling, etc. So we address the same issue like we addressed it in the previous two topics, with one connectivity provider providing a global coverage with redundant and multiple network connectivity options. So in America, for example, 5, 6, 7 network operators. In Germany, 3. In Poland, 4. In UK, for example, 4, etc. So it depends on the country, of course, but the idea is to have the best possible coverage, because in most of the cases, some of the devices get to be deployed in some remote areas. So it's very important that you are familiar with this topic, and that you know and that you can trust that your devices will work. Because at the end of the day, you can have the best device, if there is no connectivity, no data is being generated. Low data usage, but forced to pay for unused data. So you recall what I mentioned at the start, and it's the business model of local operators. They're used to selling you gigabytes of data. And I have many times the same question. Hey, Boris, but with the current provider, we get 1 GB and we paid, for example, €1. But like, why do you charge us like the same amount, or maybe half for like 5 MB, for example? These are numbers from my head, but the idea is you cannot compare these two things. Why? Because usually smart meters spend little amounts of data. It can be up to 5 MB, for example, 20 MB, worst case scenario, 20 MB. It depends what you're trying to measure. We even have customer that comes and say, hey, I have 100,000 devices, and consumption in 2 months is less than 1 MB. So how can you apply the business model? Hey, I'm going to give you €1 and for 1 GB a month. Yes, it may seem cheaper, but it's not what you need. You are paying for unused data, because their business model is not adapted properly for IoT business. What EMnify tries to do, we try to see, okay, what is actually your real consumption, your real need? So if you have 100,000 devices, SIM cards out there, or you want to deploy them, then even 10 cents can be a significant savings for you. And we want to adapt our model, our pricing, our coverage, our tariff plan, consumption for your use case. And based on that, we will propose you the solution that will best fit your needs. And this is again on a monthly basis, because all of these devices, and if you just take, for example, that if 3% of 100,000 devices goes offline because of the issue or something, it's still big amount of the devices, big amount of money per month that you can save for not paying something that you are not using. And please think about this, because this is very often that I hear, yeah, but you are charging us, compared if we see the rationality in the data, you're charging us much more. We get for you with you for 5 cents, for example, only 100 kilobytes, but then we pay €1 for 1 GB, but you don't actually need 1 GB. So you need to see what's your actual consumption, how much you need, and what is the best way for you to structure it. If you need 5 MB per month, okay, let's make it 5, but then we're gonna give you 5 and you're gonna use 5. And it will be cheaper for you than to pay for something that you are not using. And this is the first part. Second, customer centricity is the second part that I mentioned. We're gonna adapt for your needs. Not just a general pricing, not just something that you can, for example, go online and take it online and say, okay, this is for me. Every solution, every project is different in some way and needs to be understood and needs to be tailored to your needs. And at the end, you will have a team of dedicated IoT experts that worked on similar cases and can give you good and proper feedback based on your needs. The third problem, no coverage in remote locations, is something that I addressed in the first problem, but again, One provider cannot do it globally. One provider cannot do it sometimes even on a local level because some countries are big. So multi-carrier connectivity is something that is in IoT business is a must and prerequisite. And yes, you may say, but local operator sometimes can give me better rates, but he only works with their own core network. Sorry, not the core network, but with own network. And we work with their network, with their infrastructure, and with all other infrastructures out there. So to clarify it once again, we provide our own cloud core network, our own solution, and use and actually have roaming agreements with all other network operators. So we use their cell towers to deliver the coverage. So at the end, if they have a coverage or if local network operator have a coverage, we will have a coverage with him and all other network operators that we have in a certain area. So it's certain that you will have a better network coverage than just picking a local operator. Security issues, security problems that I addressed prior in two other case studies in telematics and vending machines are same here. You do not want to go out there and find the particular device change because again, it's hundreds of them, 100,000s of them, and it's impossible. You want to troubleshoot the problems, you want ping them directly, you want explore what's going on remotely. And one of the most, I would say, famous buzzwords is OTA, and OTA is provisioning over the air. So you want to troubleshoot the problems over the air, you want to find the solution, you want to solve it from your office without going outside. And this is the very important part of it. So this brings us actually to the end of case studies. And please note this presentation, this case study is based on actual use cases. I didn't mention particular companies. I just wanted to take their core problems from all the customers that we work, or majority of them, and bring it up in front of you so you understand what it means from them, which kind of a business decisions they need to make at the end, and how actually to solve it. And as I mentioned at the start, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. So please write it down, and yeah, I hope this was interesting for you, that you learned something. So I will wait a little bit for some questions if somebody has it, of course. In any case, think about the questions, but for the last part, it will be just a couple of more minutes. Um, the solution of EMnify is EMnify Cloud Management, and this is just a couple of slides to go through to make like a small and short summary for you. What is EMnify, what we do, and what we provide. So EMnify is cloud connectivity solution provider. We have our own cloud platform built in Amazon Web Services, and we have our SIM cards. Our SIM cards are multi-EMSI SIM cards that work with globally with more than 550 network operators. So no matter where you deploy it, it will work. We have thousands of customers globally deployed with a tested and proven solution. So you know that if you place our SIM card, you will have a good and reliable connectivity and coverage. What is SaaS? So SaaS is our platform, software as a service. It is a pay-as-you-go model. So it's no long-term commitment, no 2 years or 3 or 1 year contract. It's you pay when you use, when you don't pay, when you don't use, you do not pay. We're founded in 2014, and it's a German company with offices in Germany and Philippines, and also some of our colleagues are in America and Italy. So we have a global, I would say, experience with more than 100 customers, which 30% of them is in research and development team. So I hope this points out that we really care for our solution, and not just for our solution. In the day when we care about the solution, we care about you to deliver you a high-class service, a high-class product. So that would be it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry if I took a bit longer, but I wanted to cover it properly. So if there are no questions, thank you very much. Please be free to send an email to us if you want to discuss your projects more in details, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye. Jeden, dwa, trzy. Fuck.